The theme of the game jam was glitch in the system. I had a few ideas, or should I say, I had a few inspirations I wanted to take, like Dreaming or Matrix or like something with Buddha with nukes. I don't know why the fuck I wrote that down. I mean, I think that's kind of funny still. I don't know. Maybe in the future we do something with that. Relative physics or gaming interrupts. None of those were really good ideas. But I did come up with one which just says every button you click becomes an enemy you need to fight. And from that, I came up with the idea of having it be on like a desktop environment where the user is trapped in the game or in his own computer and he needs to fight off um, elements of the computer. And if the computer were to go to sleep, he would die. So I wanted to finish this game in like a day or two. The game jam was a week, but like I've never actually finished the game. I've worked on a couple. I've worked mostly on system games, where I just want to like focus on one system. But I've tried to work on a couple of games, and I never really finished them because I overscoped them, and I get way too fucking lazy to finish the fucking thing, or I just it's usually just at some point I get lazy and I don't want to finish it. So I want to make the game in like 1 or 2 days, or at least have a good working game in 1 or 2 days, so that I can polish it or like add stuff if I wanted to add stuff. So that was my main concern, and so I started off and getting the initial idea. I also wrote down Vampire Survivors, and I wrote this down because I was looking online for something inspiration, and I because I wanted to have it on a desktop, I just searched desktop, and then I saw this image of the WinRAR logo, and I was like, that looks exactly like King Bible from Vampire Survivor, and then I was like, what if we have it on the Windows XP desktop? So that's what it ended up being. And so this working on this had a lot of nostalgia because like I do remember Windows XP. I was really young. I was like between like up until like age 12. I think I used Windows XP. So it did bring a lot of nostalgia and I could bring a lot of elements of things I remember or just like having it like be like a fun environment. So in the beginning, like I mentioned, it was supposed to be the users trapped in the game, but it ended up just being Clippy from like the Windows XP mascot, which I think is much better the protagonist because I didn't like give at some point in this game's development I just stopped giving a shit and like adding like a cutscene system or some sort of system to give you a narrative of why this user is trapped in the game. I wouldn't be asked to, you know, and and like having Clippy there just makes it much more sense. So on day one, I mostly worked on prototyping the game. So I just mocked up some quick sprites to do the key taps, and the rest of the nice thing about having it on the Windows desktop is most of the sprites and stuff like that, the UI sprites of the enemies, I could just and all the weapons, I could just like get stuff from like old Windows P screenshots, and I could just like edit them out, edit them how I wanted to. So it was much faster to like get the actual assets in the game. The only problem was I like there aren't a lot of Windows XP specific screenshots in mind. Like stuff like the old wallpaper. There's a lot of them, right? But like specific like windows or specific icons, there aren't necessarily a lot, just because the internet wasn't that big of a thing back then. And most of the screenshots I either got from people that are still nostalgia baiting fucking Windows XP and still using it for some fucking reason, or it was just like the odd screenshot here or there that kind of saved the day because there's only like one of them that existed. So for this game, um, actually, so for this game jam, I wanted to uh, use some new ideas that I've learned about, like from YouTube game dev videos, which I couldn't use in my existing projects just because they are kind of a fundamental change, and I couldn't be asked to like do it in my own project. So I just wanted to do, and the main one I wanted to do was the component system. So instead of having inheritance, you'd have components. You would build out your like your enemies and your weapons with components. And I thought this was really cool. But since it was the first time I was actually using something like this, it was a complete organizational mess. I just had one folder with all my components in it, and and that was like that folder grew big. I think it was like 50 some components, and also like a critique I have about the purely component based system is it kind of makes it harder to generalize in a sense. Where like if you have an inheritance system, everything can inherit from like every enemy can inherit from an enemy class, and you can this base enemy class can have a lot of bullshit in it. It might not necessarily be useful, but to every enemy, but it makes it much more useful in other systems that aren't the enemy to like interact with the enemy. And like for instance, like the enemy spawner, that was like a kind of a hassle to set up with the system because not everything inherited the same way, and not everything like it made it a bit messy. But there was about a couple of good things that the component system helped me do. So the major one was the hitbox and hurtbox, like separating this out. This is a much better abstraction than I've been using previously. Previously, I would just if any area 2D would come into alignment. I would check if that area 2D belongs to like an actor class, and then if it belongs to the opposite actor class, player versus enemy or enemy versus player. And this works nicely. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with it. It's just it made it hard for you to have a different um, collider for both the hitbox and hurtbox for your enemies. So specific for enemies is nice because you want a nice big hurtbox so that the player can easily hurt the player, or the player can easily hurt the enemy. But you want a smaller hitbox so that the enemy doesn't easily hurt the player if it comes into contact. At least in the games that I work with. So that was nice. So another nice thing about the component-based system was the setting up of weapons and projectiles. Specifically, I'm going to mention the Slippy tool here. So the Slippy tool isn't like any of the other weapons because, like the other weapons, it does spawn a projectile, but that projectile doesn't actually just move in a certain pattern, right? That projectile has a state, first of all. It needs to go to the top left of where you're going to slip, and then it needs to move to the top bottom right, and then it needs to do the slip, right? And the logic of that projectile isn't like any of the others because first off, it doesn't have a hitbox, right? It creates a hitbox afterwards after it does the full snip, but it doesn't have an inherent hitbox. And so with any of the previous design patterns that I would have used, with specifically inheritance pattern, this would have been impossible or kind of needed some very specific system just built for that type of projectile. But with the component-based system, it was easy. I just didn't put in the hitbox, and I just didn't put in the projectile movement component. I just yeah, and that was amazing, right? So in the future, I definitely won't go with pure component-based design, but I think I'll mix it up between the component and inheritance-based because they both have pros and cons, and I think they can work well together. Like the inheritance-based can make it much easier to interact with all the projectiles or all the enemies in a very abstracted way from other systems, and the component-based design makes it very flexible to make very unique um, weapons or projectiles or whatever. On day one, I actually showed um, some of my friends this game. So this is the first time I actually showed friends any game I've worked on and to help play test it. And the feedback was nice. It was nice actually like sitting with friends and like playing the game and like them finding bugs or like just kind of no lifing it in the game. That was kind of a funny part. Like one of my friends, he played the game way too fucking much. Like he had the most time in the game than even me. Like he fucking no laughs that game, and that was pretty fun to like see someone actually enjoy the game because I didn't tell him to like play it that much. He needed to like enjoy it at some level at least. Um, the only like issue I had with like playtesting is it kind of shifted my focus in a way that I didn't really like, and that was I after having been playtested it, I shifted my like focus from making a game that I wanted to make to making a game that they wanted to have. And that's not a shift I really like. In my personal life, I am really much a guy that likes just doing his own thing, and I don't give a shit about what other people think of me or whatever. And just like since it was like a game, you have this like idea. Well, other people play this game. I want to have this game being fun, so I wanted this game to be fun for everyone. And I realized that's not something I like because like after I did that shift uh, the game development just started not being fun anymore. Like the rest of the game jam, because like I I wasn't like, oh, this is a cool feature for me, and I wouldn't just be playing the game to play it for myself. I would be like, okay, this bug they want to fix, so let me fix this bug, and this then we want this feature, let me add this feature, and that's stupid. I don't want to do that. So at the very least, I realized that about playtesting. Like like. It's fun having people play this two game, but like I want to still have do my own thing and have it be fun for myself. So on day two, I also started working on the weight based system, so the weight splitting system, and the reason for this is on playtesting. So this is another nice thing about the playtesting is the you can really see that they started getting bored after a while because on day one the only enemies that spawned was the enemies you clicked on your keyboard. And after a while, you get pretty powerful. So the enemies get destroyed very quickly, and you don't need to really move them. You just need to move to get the XP. So the game got really boring. So I added the wave scoring system, and this was the actually first time that I ever really created a proper randomized wave scoring system. The previous game, I worked on a wave-based system, but I couldn't really ever figure it out that much. So I thought, for this game, how would I go about doing it? First of all, what would I require to like spawn just a single one? So I thought, okay, I would need a minimum. I need to spawn the minimum, and I would. So this is for like bosses. Like let's say on wave five, you want to guarantee one boss spawning, but you would also need a maximum because you don't want 20 bosses. And the min max system also works nice because you can like have higher tier enemies spawn earlier but have like a maximum. And as time and waves pass, you can have the maximum increasing until there is no maximum. And you would also need a weight, right? Because you want common enemies to be more common to spawn. And each wave would also need a maximum amount of enemies that could spawn. And I thought this was nice. It looked nice, and so I thought, okay, what would be required to have this generic wave system? Um, so first off, each wave would also need to have a pool of enemies that could spawn. So each spawner would so there would be several spawners in the pool. So the reason spawning not enemies is because how I set up this up. So I have this spawner class, right? And this is it's pretty generic thing, and it uses a strategy based scripting. So it uses resources, right? And so this makes it very generic. So for instance, you can have like if you want to spawn an enemy in a circle, right? You can have the circle spawner, and then as its base class, you could have an enemy, right? And so you could spawn this enemy in a circle. So it's very generic. So you don't need to have. So it makes that if you have a spawn, each item in the pool being a spawner rather than just the enemy, you can have um, very generic type spawning of the enemy. So you can have like instead of like having to spawn 10 random enemies randomly on the map, you can have one circle of 10 enemies spawning randomly on the map, right? So that's why I use spawners instead of just like enemy as the base type of the pool. But for like the broader wave system, that spawner needs to have a time that it enters the pool and exits the pool. So I added that. So I used timestamp rather than waves because like the idea was I would maybe want to change how fast waves are spawned in the future, and having if you just use timestamp, it's independent of how quickly the waves spawn. So that's why I use that. So when I actually initialize the web controller, what I do is I actually go build up this add and remove time. So I go through, so I have this wave spawner strategy, right? And in this strategy, you can put a min max in right. So this is when it's static, but you can also implement override this strategy to give a more granular min max and right. So theoretically, it's customizable to all hell, right? But you have the start and end time. These are the times. And so in the word controller, I go calculate when will they start and end. And since the waves are in set intervals, so um, in this game it's 5 seconds, I do need to do some rounding to get the exact proper times that they enter the call. But I do that calculation. So when we spawn a wave, we go for that wave, we go add all the new spawners that need to enter the pool, and we remove all the spawners that needs to exit the pool, right? And then we go get the wave counts. Each wave has its own special amount that it can have. I use the function just because it's also much more granular. So in this game, if it's earlier than 61 minute, it just uses wave plus 1 or 5, depending on which minimum. Yeah. So that's nice. And so the first thing it does for each time it spawns a wave, it just spawns the minimum amount. And we don't spawn them directly. We have this two spawn function. And there's two from the dictionary that just keeps count how much. And we have the sub count to see how much is the total count in this two spawn so that we can check the compare it against this count, right? So first add the minimum and then we start the loop, right? And we make a pool and a pool of weights. So the pool is the pool of spawners, and this is not just put outside here because we have this maximum, right? So if a spawner in the pool is already been exhausted because it reached maximum, we could actually remove it from the pool. So we have this system here where we calculate it on each value, and then if the pool is empty, we just break out, right? And if and then if we have some sort of pool, we just use the random weights function to actually get index out of it, and then we spawn that item. And then at the end, we just do the actual spawning, and you just do the reset timer so it can wait the wave below and start again. And I think this worked amazingly. And even when I coded it, there was like barely any issues. The only issues was I think I had some syntax issues. Well, not syntax issues, but like this was an issue. I needed to add this one thing. Other than that, it worked amazing with this drive. And also on day two is when I redid some of the art of the keys, and I really loved how these keys turned out. I'm not like I've started doing pixel art just because like I feel like it's the simplest type of game asset art that I can do that I can still be creative and hopefully do well at some point. And at least for this game, I think I did well. These are the only sprites I actually needed to manually, since all of the other things were just Windows XP assets. And I think it turned out really well. I learned how to do the bezels, which was interesting, and how to, and I used the actual base key to make the other keys. And the only exception was like the enter key has this inner bevel that I just needed to do, but that was relatively simple. So yeah, so we have the black keys and the gaming keys. And the thing about the gaming keys, so the gaming keys have this light under it. And I didn't know when I was first developing this that Godot has a light limit of 16 on the screen at one time. I didn't know this. So I built this with lights in mind. And when I realized there was an issue, I just never fixed it. I just never fixed it. So when you get past the 10-minute mark and just gaming keys start to spawn, they are glitched as fuck, man. But you know, this is game jam. Things can be glitched as fuck. Plus, the theme of the game jam was glitch in the system. So let's just say it's a feature. Okay. So on day three, I just took a break. I didn't want to feel forced to do the game jam. Like if I didn't want to finish, like gonna allow myself to not want to finish it, but I want to finish. Like I'm doing game development as like a hobby, so I would like I don't want this to be a work where I force myself to do things if I don't want to do it. So on day three, I just took a break. And day four, the beginning of the end started because I like on day two already. I started working a bit on the scoreboard system just before I went to sleep. But on day four, I wanted to finish the scoreboard system, and this system broke me, man. This system fucking broke me because it wasn't the actual integration with the backend. So I used Superbase as my backend just because, like, in the day job, I used to be a backend engineer, and and I also used to like run my own company. It didn't work out well, by the way. Anyways, I used to use Superbase as my backend just because it like handles everything for you and it's like hosted already. Like the free tier, you can use it 50,000 users. So it's all good. So the actual backend integration was relatively easy. I couldn't be fucked to actually code it myself just because like I mentioned, this is a fucking hobby. This is not my job. I don't want to make it feel like a job. So I'm not going to do my job software engineering work whilst I'm doing game development. So this part is the only part I actually use just Gemini, not ChatGPT, Gemini to actually just do the coding for me because I couldn't be fucked. And so that was it. The part that actually broke me was the UI. So this is my second project actually using Godot's UI framework, which, by the way, is a very complicated framework, or relative to like front end development tech stacks, right? It's not completely intuitive for me, at least, and I do see that online as well. It's not really that intuitive, but I could set up the basics, right? I could set up the buttons that you can move between with your keys, but where it got fucked was I I struggled for like an hour or two, maybe three, maybe even four. I don't know. I just started losing track of time with this fucking input box. This fucking input box. It was so fucking horrible to implement this input box. But because the issue is right. So how the focus works, like so I have these Eaton classes, right? And I needed to move like I when you click down, the focus moves to the button down, right? But the thing is, when you have an input box on that Eaton, it needs to shift the focus from the button to the actual input box, right? And of the line editor, right? And that was relatively simple. But the problem is when you click up now, it doesn't go to the button that's above the section you're on. No, it goes to the button that the line edit is on top of, and that was an issue. Also, uh, you, in the beginning you needed to click enter to edit the text. I fixed that later, but the thing is, you couldn't move out since you were in edit mode. So when you clicked up or down, you didn't actually move out. So you needed to click enter to get out. So that was irritating. So I wanted to fix that, and then I need to write this fucking GUI input section that I just fucking I don't know what's happening. Okay, I know what's happening here, but like it's I just struggled to get this working, and so that began the beginning of the end because I am struggling my fucking ass off on something that I don't give a shit about, and and it was just like UI stuff. I don't give a shit about UI stuff. I just want the thing is I wanted this. This is a Windows XP fucking desktop experience. I want this to be feel like Windows XP. So I sat through, I grinded, and I made sure the fucking leaderboard UI worked, and then I gave it to my friends who were like feedback again, and that and then that's the day that's when I realized why I was also like not wanting to work on the game anymore. So I have been fucking pissing off about the scoreboard, but I'm not gonna blame the scoreboard completely. Like the scoreboard did piss me off, right? But like the thing about learning in general, not just learning game jam, or learning game development, just learning in general, is you're gonna get into these pitfalls where you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and you're just frustrated and you're irritated. So I'm used to that, and I'm okay with that. But the thing is, like, I also realized I wasn't making this for me. I was kind of making this for others. I'm making the globe. Part of me wanted to make the global leaderboard for myself, but another part was like the game jam recommended you put something like that in the game, and then that's what I kind of did. And so yeah, so it was day 4, and day 5 I almost didn't even complete the game jam. So like after day 4 with not wanting to make the game for myself anymore. It wasn't just that. It was also like I knew this game I wouldn't work on afterwards, so it felt like why finish it if I don't give a shit if it like is like a finished project, because like there's a bunch of stuff. Like after I finished the initial prototype, I wanted to add a bunch more stuff, but I didn't get to any of it because like after doing the scoreboard, I didn't want to do the fucking game anymore. So on day 5, like midday through the day, I was like, okay, it would be very cool if I could just send this, like, have this as a game jam. So I was initially just planning on sending it as the buggy mess it was, but I was like, okay, what if we don't add anything new and we just polish what there is and then just send that in? And even that took a few hours because guess what? It was the scoreboard again, fucking with me. When I published it online, the scoreboard wasn't working. It was working locally, but it wasn't working online. And the reason for that, and hours debugging, was the fucking gzip was enabled, and that for some reason didn't make it work. But like 2 days previously, it worked perfectly fine, and that was also enabled. So fuck me, I guess.
Like to get actual like feedback from the community was like amazing. I actually did win the game jam, which is kind of cool. It was like my first game jam I've ever done. It was a pretty small game jam. I think only like 15 games were like submitted, but either way, I didn't expect to like win my first fucking game jam, so that's amazing. I got number one in a theme and aesthetics, right? And like those were the two things that made me go. You know, the glitch in the system thing. That's why like the mouse curse and stuff like that. Otherwise, the XP looks like a glitchy. And the aesthetics, the Windows XP, I really put in a lot of effort to make the Windows XP like feel like Windows XP, like the sound effects and everything. All the sound effects come from the Windows XP like sound library.
So my overall experience with the game jam was like it was really fun. The first few days, right? So the first night I worked up until like 5, 6 a.m. in the morning, and I haven't programmed till that early in the morning for years. Like I really fucking enjoyed the first night because like I just feel like I felt like I was cooking something, man. I was like making something amazing. Um, and in the end, I feel like I'm good about it. There's a lot of features I wanted to add that I either didn't have the time for, or didn't like give a shit about anymore. But like I really enjoyed myself the first few days, and then I got frustrated, and I also learned something. I learned something about the component system was amazing. I've already started working on my next project, and I really are working with the component system this time, and I made it a bit more organized, less of an organizational mess, and I've integrated with like the inheritance system as well. So it's working well, and fuck man, I really enjoyed it. And also now like after the game jam, having people play my game and saying a bunch of nice things about it, that's also nice. Also I didn't like whilst coding, I thought this game was kind of mediocre, but like it's a decent game apparently by other people's like standards. It's a decent game for game jam at least, and that's nice. And like one of the main like things I took away about the game jam is like I don't want to be rushed while doing game development. Like I've been watching this like devlog YouTuber called Finn Matrix. He's like currently doing this series about like his game Homegrown, and it's an amazing series. Check him out. But he is such a chill fucking guy. He works on games for so long, like 3, 4 years, which is like if you ask me, I would like I don't think I would be able to hold my focus for so fucking long. But anyways, but when he works on something, he like chooses for the most part. He doesn't do this always, but for the most part, he like chooses one thing that he's gonna work on, and then he just works on that until completion, and he doesn't rush himself that much. Like he would work for 2, 3 weeks straight on fucking bees. Like his game is about farming, and he works on 2, 3 fucking weeks just to get the bees done. And it's like that's so fucking chill, my man. Like he isn't rushed. I mean, at some points in the series, he gets a bit rushed because when he does like the game box packs or some bullshit like that, then he gets a bit rushed. But for the most part, he's chill and like I kind of want that because this is just a hobby. Like I'm having fun, right? And I just like I don't want this to feel like work. I just want this to be like a hobby. So like having it chill, and that's also something I learned. So like I would do a game jam again, not too early. Like I'm not gonna do one like any since close to now. Like probably like a few months from now, a few years from now. I kind of just did this game jam on a whim because I was like super frustrated with the project I was working on. So I wanted to try a bunch of new things, and I got to do that. So just for that, like I think game jams are a nice thing. It's not something I'm gonna do regularly though. Yeah, yeah.
And check out the actual game. It's in the description. You can like play 5 minutes of it. Say what you think. I'm probably not gonna do any bug fixes if you find any bugs. I think the scoreboard is broken again, and I'm not gonna fix it. Fuck that. Cheers.